to join the Bible experience. You will be starting to snow.
Yeah. You're the one who follow this.
So, thank you. Good morning, everyone, once again. Thank you very much, Executive Secretaries, Commissioners, USCD, colleagues, partners, warm welcome to our side event, to the role of regional commissions in supporting member states in the follow-up to the outcome of FFD4. In some way, having this side event the last day is fitting, because if you look at the outcome document, it's literally one of the last paragraphs, 65G, which makes the role of regional commissions very explicit. And it says, member states, we encourage enhanced regional follow-up processes as part of the regional forums on sustainable development, led by the regional economic commissions, with regular regional reporting on progress, regional committees, and consultations on progress and priorities. And this is precisely what we are here to discuss today. So without further delay, let me start with the opening segment. We'll have three segments, welcoming remarks by USG Mr. Junho Ali, and then we will have the first segment, perspectives from sub-regions, from elected secretaries and their representatives, and then we'll have permanent representatives from, I think, COFAC countries and other from other senior officials from the regions. So let me please invite now Mr. Lee Jinhua, Under Secretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, Department of Economic Affairs.
Thank you, Hassan. Well, good morning, dear colleagues. It is so pleased to join all of you at this very final day for our FFD4. Just now, as a moderator said, that the final paragraph of this Compromiso de Sevilla highlights the critical role for regional commissions to move our commitment forward. But let me say at the very outset, I wish just to highlight that the regional commissions were extremely instrumental in shaping the landmark Compromiso de Sevilla and throughout the preparatory process for the FFD4. The regional dialogues and the evidence-based policy briefs contributed by the 5 regional commissions were the foundational to the regional priorities as reflected in the Compromiso de Sevilla. This vital role of the regional commissions must continue as we moved from the commitment to the action. So Sevilla commitment provides a very renewed and actionable roadmap to achieve the global goals. So please allow me just to share the 3 key deliverables from this commitment. First, a concrete plan to close the $4 trillion SDG financing gap. This includes the tripling MDB lending, doubling ODA to enhance domestic public resource mobilization, and help the countries to achieve 15% tax to GDP ratio, and a more effectively leveraging private investment. Second, a robust package to address the escalating debt crisis. This features first, a debt facility to lower the cost of the borrowing and reduce the debt service. Second, a global debt registry. Fourth, the mainstreaming of the post-close in lending. Fourth, a greater voice for debt countries or debtor countries in the global debt architecture. The third striking feature is a significant push to reform the international financial architecture. This will be achieved by amplifying the voices of the developing countries in the IFI decision table and expanding access to emergency funding through a new SDR playbook. Severe platform for action provides the concrete initiatives, altogether 130, to accelerate the implementation of these commitments, building early momentum. As we move forward, the regional commissions will be extremely essential. Implementation must be advanced across the national, regional, and global levels. So the Compromiso de Sevilla recognizes the critical regional layer, committing to strengthen the regional financing mechanisms and arrangements to deepen the regional integration. We believe the regional commissions are uniquely positioned to facilitate the regional knowledge sharing, promote the peer learning, and integrate the regional perspectives into the global FFD follow-up. So once again, my department, UNDESA, will be fully committed to supporting this regional to global process. I look forward to your discussion and to continuing our collaboration to ensure the success of delivering our commitment here in Sevilla. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee, for setting the scene. As you know, we have already been working collaboratively for almost a year in the lead up to Sevilla. It is one evidence I have in my hand, a hard copy of a policy brief that all regional commissions put together jointly under the lead of ACLEC, who was the coordinator of all regional commissions last year. And a soft copy of this will be available if you look at the concept note. I'm here actually just representing ESCAP. I'm Hamza Ali Malik, but I am joined by my colleagues from all across regional commissions. So this is truly has been a collaborative effort going forward. So let's move to our next segment about context setting and perspective from Asia and the Pacific and the regional commissions from across the UN system. Let me first invite Mr. Clever Gatate, Executive Secretary of Economic Commission of Africa, initiate the conversation.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you very much, Under Secretary General for DESA for that wonderful introduction, and also the work that has gone into this process. We are convening here in this wonderful city at a moment of heightened urgency, one that requires more than reflection. Indeed, it demands decisive action. With just 5 years remaining until 2030, only 17% of the SDGs targets are on track. For Africa, the picture is even concerning. Out of 169 measurable targets, only 4 are on track. Only 4 are on track. The barriers such as rising debt, expensive financing, inequality, and data gaps, they are well known, but never has the imperative to address them been greater. Fortunately, the outcome document adopted here at FFD4 provides a valuable starting point. What matters now is how to build on it with strong frameworks, effective systems, and above all, the political will to act. Allow me, therefore, to share 5 concrete policy recommendations from the Economic Commission for Africa that are both informed by Africa's realities and aligned with global aspirations. First, we must establish a global financing accountability framework anchored in periodic global and regional reviews. Without mechanisms to track what we finance and how we finance, we risk eroding credibility. This framework must measure progress, enable course correction, and promote transparency. To be effective, it should rely on standardized reporting and harmonized review cycles, which will enable comparability across regions. Second, we must urgently strengthen national data systems. Without data, there is no development, only guesswork. Fortunately, many African countries are hampered by fragmented systems, weak digital infrastructure, and limited statistical capability. These gaps hamper policy planning and financing. In this regard, we call for scaled-up support, such as financing, technology transfer, and long-term capacity building to modernize data governance and enable interoperable, resilient systems. Third, we propose the creation of an integrated FFD4 follow-up system connecting national, regional, and global processes. This harmonized platform can unify fragmented monitoring tools and make follow-up more strategic. For Africa, we recommend anchoring this within the regional FFD observatory, jointly coordinated by the African Union, the African Development Bank, and the Economic Commission for Africa. This observatory will provide data, promote peer learning, and enhance region-wide accountability. Fourth, we urge ministers of finance to establish national FFD coordination units. These units would improve whole of government coherence, align development plans with global targets, and track financial flows in real time. Critically, they should institutionalize integrated national financing frameworks to better align public and private resources with national priorities. Fifth, we must rethink how we measure development. GDP alone no longer reflects the complexity of countries' lives, particularly where poverty, environmental fragility, and vulnerability intersect. We strongly support the adoption and operationalization of the multidimensional vulnerability index, a tool recognized in the FFD4 outcome document. The multidimensional vulnerability index can guide financing decisions, and the policy responses can ensure that vulnerability is no longer invisible in data or decision making. These 5 priorities are grounded in what African countries have asked for and what we know required to move from promise to measurable delivery. As regional economic commissions, we are uniquely positioned to bridge global ambition with national realities, to convene evidence-based dialogue, and support countries through data, policy advice, and regional platforms. Ultimately, the true test of Sevilla will not be what we declare in this room, but what we implement beyond this. Together, we can work to ensure that what we have begun here today is translated into meaningful development outcomes for generations to come. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clever, for laying out the detailed plans how PCA intends to take the commitments of Sevilla forward. Let me now invite Ms. Tatiana Molcian, Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission of Europe.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, and first of all, to my fellow Executive Secretaries, to Clever, who is our coordinator this year, and Economic Commission for Africa. But special thanks to you, Julie, not only for being here, but for all of the efforts and all of the results that have been already achieved at this important FFD meeting. So thank you so much for that. The context of our discussion, I think, is very clear. It was mentioned just now also by Clever and also by Julie. Nearly a decade into the 2030 agenda, we have not succeeded in closing the funding gap for the SDGs. Our commitments made more than 10 years ago have not been fully met, and we have been unable to really unlock the resources needed for the global goals. There are understandable reasons for this. In many cases, multiple causes and economic, social, and environmental shocks that have impeded progress. We just heard, and we know very well, that we are still confronted with a system that is misaligned and with sustainability requirements and prone to risks. Inequality persists in access to finance, for example, for developing and middle-income countries, as well as for smaller enterprises within countries. Yet, the outcome adopted here in Seville provide us with a new impetus to push for public and private SDG funding. But let it be very clear, the challenging work that we implement the Sevilla outcome or Compromiso de Sevilla, and I know that I was talking with my Spanish colleagues who convinced me this is not a compromise, it's a commitment. So, the outcome documents to achieve, if we want to really achieve real change in resource mobilization in particular, it only starts after this conference. So after we leave these rooms, it's when we have not to put it to the next 10 years or how many years. It's really to get to work. It will involve a lot of actors, many actors, from policymakers to the private sector, international and financial organizations, but most of all, also civil society has to be a key partner for all of us. It will require a lot of efforts, global, regional, sub-regional, national or local, down to the people at the local level. This is precisely where the question of follow-up implementation comes into play. A more stringent, I think, Clover, you spoke about this, and monitoring and mechanisms across all the topics and chapters will how the Compromiso de Sevilla succeed. At the regional level, we stand ready to carry out the enhanced follow-up, as it was called, as encouraged in the document in this paragraph 65. We are committed at UNICEF to strengthen consultations with our member states on financing for sustainable development within the boundaries of our mandates. Our annual regional forum for sustainable development would be a natural platform to do so. But we also have to think a little bit beyond our, let's say, established meetings and processes. How do we translate the spirit of Seville into concrete solutions and actions? At UNICEF, we have the unique opportunity to integrate financing issues into our policy, standard setting and capacity building work in many areas that are crucial for sustainable development. 3 examples. One, the interplay of public-private funding is really crucial for many sustainability projects. Public-private partnerships are a powerful tool to advance this operation. And for example, when it comes to building resilience and sustainable infrastructure, this is key. UNICEF has developed a quality assurance tools for PPPs, the UNICEF PPP and infrastructure evaluation and rating system. It's called PEERS. And it basically scores projects, infrastructure projects against the entities, and it gives them a rating. And this can be an assurance for the investors that projects using this methodology are taking complete steps to be more sustainable. We have already quite a good track record of successes of countries and private partners using more than 200 projects being evaluated in the last 2 years under this instrument. Urban areas are key drivers of economic, social, and environmental impact. So adequate financing for sustainable development at the local and city level is crucial. We had a very good discussion in the first day with the mayor of Seville. There are challenges for cities hosting events like that, but in the UNICEF region, we have created a forum of mayor, which has been an important step to promote policy exchange and hear the voices of the local level at the multilateral stage. We have the next meeting, the 5th forum of mayor in October later the year. And the third example that I would like to share, and it builds on some discussion that we had previously this week with some of you on water. Water is a fundamental enabler of sustainable development, yet the world faces a significant financing gap in achieving SDG 6 and in developing water-related infrastructure. Transboundary water cooperation, as promoted by the UNICEF Water Convention, supports the management of shared waters and helps improve predictability and investor confidence. These are the 3 concrete examples of concrete solutions and tools of how the finance for sustainable development agenda can be taken forward at the regional level. By creating this normative, regulatory, policy, and governance environment to enable financing and investment in key areas is an essential strategic role that we at UNICEF have also in this context. So I look forward to the discussion with the member states on this important topic. Thank you so much.
Tatiana, for sharing perspective from Europe. Let me now invite Executive Secretary from Economic and Social Commission of West Asia, Ms. Gula Dashti.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by seconding my colleagues of thanking Dessa for incredible coordinating that forum and the momentum it has and the energy. I think everybody has felt it during this last couple of days on various issues. Moving forward on the implementation and monitoring of the commitment, civil commitment, I'll start with the 3 points that Mr. Lee has spoken about on the financing side. On the financing side, we at ESCAP are working on several fronts and will continue to do it on the financing side. One of them is we are pioneering the issue of the debt swap 2.0. And we're working with different countries in developing their debt swap programs. It's a program, it's not a project. That's why we have debt swap 2.0 to address all the deficits of debt swaps, normal debt swap, including and the program associated with KPIs to accelerate the SDG as we go along. And this is will be an implementation and we're moving forward on the issue of the debt swap. On the resource mobilization, is domestic resource mobilization. It's extremely important, as Mr. Lee was just mentioning, increasing the tax to GDP ratio to 15%. We're working on the illicit financial flow that the region is encountering. We have estimated almost $90 billion is going up due to illicit financial flow and the other of this tax. Invoicing and helping countries to do that, working on a regional roadmap with member states on addressing the issue of the illicit financing flows as we go along, and we will be continuing doing this as we go along. In addition, we have created an integrated artificial intelligence toolkits where we advise members on how to have better budgeting and fiscal policy choices, enhancing their financial planning and spending efficiency and effectiveness through this. And this integrated budget intelligence AI-driven enhances the real of the same amount of budget, but accelerating much more on the SDGs, on reallocating resources and using them more efficiently. And this makes it planning the fiscal space as we go along, and we continue this as we implementing on enhancing the fiscal space as the commitments, civil commitments. On the debt crisis, this is extremely important, is the lowering of the cost of debt. And we have developed a debt optimization AI tool, which has shown that some of the countries in our region are being, unfortunately, incurring inflated risk premium. They're paying much more compared to the counterparts, peers in other countries which have this. The calculation is almost $4 billion in a year. It was attributed to the inflated risk premium, which is almost the region has paid likely $40 billion. So you can imagine 10% of the 40 billion has been because of inflated risk premium. So we are supporting member states to have a better voice on negotiating, because with data intelligence mechanism under our debt optimization tool, to use it as an evidence base to negotiate much better on their finances. In addition, on the debt voice that Mr. Lee is talking about, we at ESCAP will continue to do this as we move along, is we have developed a debt management network, which is for all the countries in the region. So the debt managers, they have a network, they meet every 6 months, discuss peer-to-peer learning on various things, but also enhancing their capacity for the new innovative financial instruments. There's a lot of innovative financial instruments that they can benefit from, but they don't know how, because they're resorting to the traditional financing mechanism where they can benefit from it and lower their cost. Plus is that to have a voice, and this will lead also that this experience that we have will lead also into the borrowers club that has been mentioned, into which our experiences will go into as the thinking and operationalization of the borrowers club is in the making, so we can contribute to also the thinking and the experiences on that part, so that we have a better voices as we go along. The new platform of actions, there's a lot of peer-to-peer and capacity building is still important. what we're facing is the issue of the capacity building. There's a lack of capacity building, especially within our member states in innovative financing states. And this because now financing and debt is not only the Ministry of Finance only obligation, and it's the only entity. It's now becoming a whole government approach. Now we're talking about these innovative financial instruments like if we're talking about SMB sustainable linked bonds, for example, or green bonds, they're associated with certain KPIs to get the benefit of a lower premium. But these KPIs are with data, statistics, information into it. So it's outside the domain of the Ministry of Finance. The projects, also the private projects, they are sustainable projects. So we're talking about adaptation project, mitigation project. So we're getting other ministries to go into. Having said that, then it becomes the country platform. And this is what the ESCA is working on the country platforms to put it forward, led by the Ministry of Finance, but it has a task force for all other ministries and all other partners so that they be equipped and capacity building. This will go forward and bringing more financing, lowering the financing and benefiting from this innovative financing instrument of our cost. So it is now the debt issue is, as we say, it's beyond the Ministry of Finance. And this is also a mindset change that governments are trying to understand now, and we're putting them and educating them as we go along. Is that the task forces and the collaboration and the coordination among various ministries is extremely important if we're looking into a lower rate of debt cost of borrowing, or in terms of accessing different financial instruments as we go along. We collectively, as regional commissions, as my colleagues are saying, we do have different tools, we do have different experiences that we're putting in at the regional level, but also at the country level and peer-to-peer and capacity building into it. A lot of the platform, there is the platform of actions. There's a lot of these actions that all the regional commissions already have been implemented into it. And especially, and I just want to tell, because my teams are here, which they've been working for the last 4 years when we picked up the issue of the debt swap control. I mean, we were among the few voices at that time talking about it is an instrument that expands fiscal space. It's one of the instruments, it's not a solution. But people were talking about other instruments which are debt instruments, but in a different mechanism, which are also important. But we're saying we don't want to create that instrument, we want to have some other instruments that expand fiscal space, but lower. So our voices, we went in and pushing it and putting the program and looking into the debt swap as a program, as a project. It's a KPIs, it is a climate addressing issues, accelerating SDGs and their KPIs, and putting this whole agenda and implementing idea of our initiative, and then starting lobbying with the IMF, the World Bank, different institutions, and the voice went over and over and over, and we're very happy that their commitment, civil commitment, is now addressing it. So the community who was pushing for the last 3.5 years in making the debt swap as one of the issues and instrument of also expanding the fiscal space is something that really tell us that any idea of becoming persistent on it, we're gonna get somewhere into it. And the regional committees are committed in the issue of the debt to support our member states as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nashri, for sharing very detailed perspectives and examples from the West Asia region. Now let me invite Ms. Lin Yang, the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Social Commission, to share the presentation.
Thank you, Hamza. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and the Secretary General Lee, Executive Secretaries, Ambassador Abbas, and dear participants. As the co-organizer of this side event, a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of our Executive Secretary, Ibu Anida, and ESCAP. The outcome document, Compromiso de Sevilla, from this conference calls for enhanced regional follow-up processes. I read verbatim, led by the regional economic commissions with the regular regional reporting on progress, regional committees, and consultations on progress and the priorities. The purpose of this side event is to explore how the regional commissions can effectively support such regional follow-up processes and to discuss regional perspectives and priorities on financing for development. We as ESCAP have been actively supporting our member states on a host of financing for development issues since the third international conference in Addis Ababa through intergovernmental processes, technical assistance work, and the knowledge products and the policy advice. To bring Asia-Pacific perspectives to the FFD4, we organized a high-level regional consultation in December 2024. The chair's summary of that meeting was submitted to the co-facilitators as inputs to the outcome document from Asia and Pacific. 3 substantive issues stand out. First, domestic resources, public resources mobilization. Second, domestic and international private finance and investment towards SDGs. Third, public debt sustainability. On domestic public resources, ESCAP members highlighted the need to broaden the tax base through policy reform, reducing exemptions and improving tax compliance, for which is essential to count on efficient and effective tax administration, including the digitalization. On accelerating the mobilization of domestic international private finance, ESCAP member states call for stronger regulatory frameworks, consistent policies, and robust domestic financing systems to channel private capital towards SDG-aligned investments. On debt sustainability, ESCAP members emphasized the need for faster, equitable, and transparent debt restructuring processes and frameworks, along with use of long-term debt sustainability assessment approaches. At the same time, the new and emerging issues in financing for development were highlighted in the regional consultation, including the unique role of the South-South and the triangular cooperation. We are very pleased to see that those issues highlighted during our regional consultation are reflected in the Sevilla outcome document. From ESCAP's side, on intergovernmental processes, how to follow up, we have the biannual session of the Committee on Macroeconomic Policy, Poverty Reduction, and the Financing for Development. It provides a forum for ESCAP members to share their perspectives on FFD issues, discuss policy options, share best practices, and recommend actions to be undertaken by ESCAP. The committee already established a consultative group on financing strategies for SDGs that consists of government-nominated focal points from pertinent ministries to work with ESCAP on FFD4 issues. Thus, we already have an intergovernmental process in place to take forward the recommendation of El Compromiso de Sevilla regarding regional follow-up process. Our next committee will take place November 19 to 21 in Bangkok. You are cordially invited to join our committee. Regarding technical assistance and the country-level capacity building, we have been actively engaged in over 20 countries in the region on various FFD issues, including taxation, infrastructure financing, MSME financing, sustainable financing, and financing the energy transition, with a focus on sharing experiences, lessons learned regionally, and equipped the public institutions. Such engagements have allowed us to understand countries' specific priorities and support them accordingly, exactly in alignment with what the outcome document called for, member states-driven, member states ownership. In terms of the research and analysis, as a contribution to Seville Conference, we launched a 2-year project through our flagship report, Economic and Social Survey of Asia and the Pacific, focusing on the macroeconomic implication of climate change. I feel obliged to promote this report. We will continue the report for the next year. At the same time, we publish a biannual report, ESCAP's Financing for Development series, and regularly produce working papers and the policy briefs on emerging FFD issues. Going forward, our FFD report can highlight progress by member states on key commitments made in El Compromiso de Sevilla, and thus facilitate peer learning and enhance regional follow-up. ESCAP is ready to discuss possible common approaches, as mentioned by our coordinator, Ambassador Clever, for the regional follow-up process with other regional commissions, for which the event is an important first step. We very much look forward to hearing from our distinguished delegates, member states, and the stakeholders, as well as your colleagues at the regional level and from all around the world, and to have a robust follow-up and review process in ESCAP. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Yang, for sharing detailed perspective from Asia and the Pacific. And now let me turn to our colleague, Mr. Noel Perez Benitez, the officer in charge and coordinator of the Fiscal Affairs Unit, Economic Development Division, ECLAC. Noel.
Thank you, Hamza. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, USG lead, executive secretaries, and everyone in the public, good morning to all. It is an honor to participate in this event in representation of ECLAC's Executive Secretary, Mr. Jose Manuel Salazar Sirinach. As we approach 2030, Latin America and the Caribbean stands at a critical juncture, facing profound challenges in mobilizing the resources necessary to achieve the SDGs and to support inclusive, resilient, sustainable development. The financing gap for development is stark in our region, with Latin America and the Caribbean facing a regional financing gap of around $650 billion per year. Regrettably, progress towards the SDGs in our region is insufficient. Only 23% of targets are on track to be met by 2030, while 41% show positive trends, but at a pace too slow for timely achievement, and 36% are either stalled or regressing. This reality underscores the urgency of addressing both the quantity and the quality of financial resources available for development. This slow progress towards achieving the SDGs is a symptom of a development crisis in the region characterized by three interlinked traps. The first one is a low capacity to grow and transform our development model. The second trap is one of high inequality, low social mobility, and weak social cohesion. And the third trap is related to low institutional capacities and ineffective governance. The combination of low growth and limited fiscal space constrains the ability of countries to invest in the transformations needed for sustainable development. Public finances in Latin America have a long history of being biased towards deficits, as revenues are insufficient to cover public expenditure requirements. For example, tax revenues in Latin America and the Caribbean average only 21% of GDP compared to almost 34% of GDP in OECD countries. We also have a severe issue of tax evasion. Our estimations show that a tax evasion in the region amounts to almost 6.7% of regional GDP. Plus, we have regressive tax structures that undermine revenue mobilization and perpetuate inequality. Also, during the last 15 years, public debt levels have continuously grown, which along with higher financing costs have led to a sharp increase in interest payments. Today, countries in the region pay between 3 and 5 percentage points of GDP on interest payments. And the trade-off of this situation is that there are less resources available for priority expenditure. For example, interest payments represent 70% of educational spending in Latin America, 86% of health spending, and 57% of social protection spending. This is something that we have called a development distress syndrome. This conference has presented a unique opportunity to evaluate progress, identify obstacles, and advance concrete actions and initiatives to accelerate the 2030 agenda. It is not a matter of ideology, but of pragmatism and common sense. Without adequate financing, sustainable development will remain out of reach. As we look to the future of financing for development, the role of the UN regional commissions is more crucial than ever. Outcomes of this conference demand robust, coordinated, and a regionally tailored follow-up to ensure that commitments translate into tangible progress. We, as regional commissions, are uniquely positioned to support our member states in the implementation and monitoring of FFD4 outcomes. Our comparative advantage lies in our deep knowledge of regional realities, our convening power, and our established platforms of dialogue, peer learning, and capacity building. In the case of ECLAC, our network of subsidiary bodies, including the Forum of Sustainable Development, the Regional Fiscal Policy Seminar, the Regional Platform on Tax Cooperation, the Regional Conference on Social Development, the Statistical Conference of the Americas, the Regional Conference on Women, among others, provide a robust infrastructure for advancing the Compromiso de Sevilla. These platforms enable our member states to exchange experiences, identify best practices, and coordinate policy responses tailored to the specific needs and priorities of our region. Going forward at ECLAC, we will leverage these mechanisms to enhance our contributions to, first, facilitate peer learning and policy dialogue on key financing challenges, such as domestic resource mobilization, debt sustainability, and private sector engagement. Second, consolidate and scale up capacity building initiatives to strengthen fiscal institutions, enhance tax administration, and improve public financial management. Third, promote South-South cooperation and knowledge sharing, compounding the diversity of experiences and innovations among member states. And fourth, support the monitoring and follow-up of FFD commitments through our reporting activities, data collection, and analytical work to ensure accountability and transparency. Let me conclude by emphasizing that regional commissions play a vital advocacy role in advancing the reforms of the international financial architecture. By articulating regional perspectives and priorities, we can contribute to shape global debates and ensure that the voices of our member states are heard in international forums. Therefore, regional commissions are indispensable partners in the journey from commitment to action to translate the outcomes of Sevilla into concrete progress towards the SDGs and more equitable and sustainable future for all. 1 year ago, between the 5 regional commissions, we elaborated a policy brief on reform proposals for FFD called Road to Sevilla. Today, on the last day of this historical conference, the time seems right to start working on a sequel called From Sevilla Onwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Again, very comprehensive detailed perspectives from ECLAC. Before we move to our next segment to hear from the member states, from the governments themselves and their representatives, please a round of applause to our executive secretaries and their representatives.
Thank you.
First, please.
Happy to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Okay. How are you? Yeah.
Hey, yes, I mean, please, start with the other last segment, actually, the other side of the table, and so we heard from the UN regional commissions, how they have been working with member states, and supporting the issues they've been highlighting and analyzing. supporting member states. Now let's say from the member state side. I'm just making to confirm whether we have His Excellency Mr. Ilyas Musa Dalali, the Minister of Economy and Finance of Djibouti. I saw him here earlier. Don't see him now. But he stepped out. So we'll begin with him and hopefully he will join later and share perspectives. So I'll move along the lines that I have. Let me first invite His Excellency Mr. Lo Bahadur Thapa, Permanent Representative of Nepal to the United Nations and Vice President of ECOSOC, to share perspectives from Nepal and from Asia.
Thank you, and Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and so happy actually to be here this morning. And as we know that we are meeting at a very defining moment, and the world is facing a convergence of crisis, economic uncertainty, rising rate, shocks, geopolitical tensions. The challenges are testing the resilience of our institutions and the credibility of our commitments. The global economy is struggling to recover, poverty remains widespread, hunger is rising, malnutrition persists, trade is slowing, investment is strengthening, aid is declining, fiscal space in the lot of developing countries, including especially NDC, LNDC, states are tightening, and the gap between the ambition and resources is growing in many countries, especially in the global south. In this context, the whole international conference on the financing for development, and what's quite important, what's quite essential, and is the co-facilitators of the outcome document. And we had the privilege of getting deeply in the negotiation process, including my colleague from Mexico, who is represented here. And we are so delighted that we have the member state adopted the Compromiso de Sevilla with consensus, because it is a bold and action-oriented roadmap to reform the global financial architectures and closing the financing gap for sustainable development. It ignited the urgency of closing $4 trillion financing gap and lays out the bold steps to catalyze investment and reform. I think the best on that Addis Ababa action agenda, the Sevilla commitment has agreed some important actions, such as tripling MDB's lending to support social investment and transformative growth, doubling efforts to help countries achieve at least 15% tax ratio. It also calls for a stronger domestic resource mobilization and urges countries to enhance tax systems, improve public spending efficiency, and align national budgets with sustainable development goals using tools like integrated national financing framework. And similarly, it has given the importance to the mobilizing private capital to generate rich and jobs and promote inclusive growth. It promotes blended, the finance, risk sharing instruments, thematic bonds, sustainable business regulations tailored to national context and backed by capacity support. On day, the document emphasizes the lowering the borrowing cost to reduce debt service and free up resources for sustainable development. It also talks about preventing future debt crises through greater transparency, and it talks about elevating the ways debtor countries setting the debt architecture. But it also calls for the inclusive reform in international financial institutions by giving the developing countries a seat at the table, so their needs are addressed in global financial decision making. And it also talks about expanding access to emergency financing to better respond to shocks and crises. The document also mandated some important follow-up mechanism under the United Nations. Importantly, the Sevilla commitment assigns a stronger role to the UN regional commissions than ever before, I believe. From Nepal's perspective, welcome this enhanced regional follow-up. we have seen firsthand the leadership of scale in Asia and Pacific under the chairmanship of Nepal's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. I ESCAP hosted a high-level regional consultations planned in last December. The chair summary from that meeting provided timely and constructive input to the FFD4 outcome. But our work does not end here. Regional commissions must now move from the consultation implementations. The regional commissions will have a vital role in assisting the national government and local actors in the monitoring and follow-up the implementation of the Compromiso de Sevilla. Scale, particularly I talked about the scale and a regional arm of the event in Asia and Pacific can play a vital role translating the global commitment to regional action. They can, all the regional commissions, you can facilitate peer learning and knowledge sharing to build regional expertise and innovation, as well as advance South-South and triangular cooperation as well. You can provide enhanced capacity building network, technical expertise across the critical areas of FFD4 outcome document, including on domestic public resources, data sustainability, international development cooperation, and private finance. It will be reflected in the valuable policy brief by regional commissions on the road to Sevilla. And you also convene you can also convene a dialogue to identify regional priorities, and you also may need to monitor progress and ensure accountability. And you know that existing regional mechanisms could be better leveraged on all these fronts. It will also help essential to strengthen the coordination of networks to help ensure that global commitments, including the FFD outcome, the Doha program actions for LLDC, for example. Similarly, we will have shortly the LLDC outcome document or as a action, plan of action. Similarly, we have the 6 plan of action. So we will have the outcome document of the second World Social Summit in November. All we are having an impact on the ground, reaching to the peoples and communities. So on that, I think all the regional commissions, there you have a role to play, and you can help address the concerns raised with the negotiations as well by the member states. And you can encourage inclusive dialogue, trust building, and evidence-based solutions. I believe regional commissions are well placed to facilitate such important process. Nepal remains committed to working with ESCAP from our regions and with all the regional commissions. Because Nepal will be the president of the ECOSOC zone. And so we'll be working with all the United Nations, the banks, and all partners to enhance access to finance for sustainable development while safeguarding the fiscal and financial sustainability. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Papa. Thank you also for giving us a Sevilla document as a co-facilitator. Let me now invite another of our co-facilitators for the FFD4, Her Excellency Ms. Alicia Rostro Asiu, Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Mexico to the United Nations.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. I hope that the mood is very positive and that everybody's happy here in Sevilla. So it's a pleasure to speak today on behalf of Mexico in our capacity as co-facilitator of the outcome documents of the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. I would like to thank the regional commissions for organizing this important dialogue and for the note they have prepared, which offers a thoughtful and regionally grounded input into this process. Thank you. Mexico has long supported the FFD process. It started in Mexico, in my country, in 2002, and I had the chance to be there in another capacity and see the initiation of this process that has brought us from Monterrey to Doha to Addis Ababa, and now here to Sevilla. So we're proud to continue this legacy alongside Nepal, Norway, and Zambia by co-facilitating the negotiations of the FFD4 outcome document. This has been a responsibility that we approach with a deep awareness of the complex economic and political environment that surrounded us. In this sense, we believe that the framework of the international financial architecture developed over the past 2 decades should be updated to meet new challenges. And that is very easy. Everything evolves and everything needs change because you need to adapt to the new realities. So we're facing a new configuration and we need to adapt the structures that we created back in 1945 afterwards. So the context of this conference has been marked by 3 overlapping challenges. First, a growing financing gap that has been mentioned by my dear colleague, the ambassador of Nepal, estimated at over $4 trillion per year. Financial flows are no longer keeping pace with the investments needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and we need to face it. We have not been able also to convince the private sector to come and invest into development projects for the global south. And we need to keep on working on that, and that is something that Mexico would like to focus on after we come back home. Second, many developing countries are contending with unsustainable debt that we know burdens, in particular after COVID-19. In several regions, debt servicing now exceeds spending on essential social service, which directly undermines development prospects. And that's why one of the deliverables of FFD4 has to do with the debt service and has to do with interest rates. And in order to help. And that's why we are going to have a dialogue, an intergovernmental dialogue at the United Nations, because that's the fora, it's a global fora where everybody is represented, and to see how we can help and influence the financial architecture from there and deal with debt restructuring. And third, we are seeing a decline in trust in international cooperation. Geopolitical tensions, limited progress on past commitments, and a fragmented financial landscape are putting, we know, multilateralism under pressure at the precise moment when collective action is most needed. But if you look into the 3 pillars of the UN, you can see that in the development pillar, we have been able to move forward. You see, we saw a few weeks ago what we were able to achieve at the WHO with oceans a few weeks ago in Nice, now with FFD4, and of course BBNJ just a couple of years ago. So we are aware of the importance of working together and what we can achieve if we work together. So in response to this precise moment of multilateralism facing such pressure, the outcome document of Sevilla aims to present a set of balanced and forward-looking proposals that can help or contribute at least to restore confidence and enable tangible progress. Among the priorities reflected in the text are the need to boost domestic resources mobilization through fair taxation. We are doubling the support in the outcome document for countries that want to achieve going beyond the 15% of tax revenue of their GDP. And then, of course, expand affordable finance so that we can have loans that are larger in scope, that with better interest rates and with maturity time that is better for all our countries. And then promote inclusive tax cooperation and ensure timely, fair debt solution. It also calls for aligning financing with national priorities and scaling up climate and blended finance to support a just transition. From the perspective of Latin America and the Caribbean, the challenges are many and interconnected. Already, our colleague from ECLAC has portrayed what is the perspective going on in Latin America. Countries in our region face tight fiscal constraints, narrow tax bases, and limited capacity to mobilize domestic resources, which are areas that are being tackled precisely in the outcome document. Additionally, rising debt burdens and high interest rates are crowding out essential investments that are super important for health and for education and climate action, particularly in countries that are classified as middle income, often excluded by international financial criteria. And the region also grapples with persistent structural inequalities, which have been further exacerbated by recent global shocks. Informality remains high in our countries, and public investment in infrastructure and innovation remains constrained. Moreover, external capital flows are volatile and procyclical, exposing economies to financial instability. Climate vulnerability, digital exclusion, and growing social demands all intersect with these financial challenges, making the need for systemic reform even more urgent. And because it's systemic, you can see that everything that I have mentioned regarding the region that I represent and from where I come from are exactly dealt with in the outcome document of Sevilla. So in this context, a key priority for reform is to secure a global financial system that better reflects countries' vulnerabilities, not just their income levels, and that provides more predictable and equitable access to finance. Fiscal sustainability, climate resilience, and inclusive growth must go hand in hand. They cannot go separately. Another shared concern is the volatility of external capital flows, which hinders long-term investment. Strengthening the global financial safety net, improving credit rating methodologies, and broadening access to liquidity facilities are issues that resonate strongly in our region. And finally, with all this in mind, the role of the regional commissions is essential in supporting implementation. Through its analytical capacity, policy dialogues, and technical cooperation, ECLAC can help countries in Latin America and the Caribbean to operate commitments agreed in Sevilla in a way that is responsive to regional realities and policy needs. So this is a great advantage that we have, and we can take very seriously and work together hand in hand in our region with ECLAC. For example, and just to finish, ECLAC's work on inequality, structural gaps, and climate vulnerability can support countries in aligning their financing strategies with development priorities. Its regional assessments can also help governments in Latin America and the Caribbean identify opportunities to expand fiscal space, which is so urgent in our countries. Of course, to integrate sustainability into public investment planning and to ensure financing strategies are inclusive and equitable. So thank you very much, because this is a very timely event, and working with the regional commissions will help us, all of us, implement in the right way the outcome document of Sevilla. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rostro-Massieu, for sharing perspectives from ECLAC and the country perspective. Let's move along. We have two more speakers, and we have I'd like to leave at least for 10 minutes in the end, possibly if there are questions. So let me now invite Mr. Abbas Sadoun Ubaid, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Iraq to the United Nations and Chair of the Group of 77 in China. Ubaid, please.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. And I would like to thank all the regional commissions for organizing this side event, and it's very important. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be part of this side event, and I would like to thank all the regional commissions for organizing this side event. It's okay. Yes. So let me start to say that according to the burden share and common responsibility, we recognize the key roles of the regional commissions according to their mandate through the connections and the relations with the national institutions or the relevant national institutions in the region. So, and also, as we always say, there is no global solution is viable if it is not regionally relevant and nationally punished. That's where the regional commissions sit. So the regional commissions of the United Nations, comprising ECA, FLAG, ESCAP, FFD4, and UNIS also, they play the central in supporting the member states to implement and follow up on the outcomes of the four international conference on financing development. The Commission serves as a bridge between the global policy commitments and national implementations, offering regional specific technical support, capacity building, and peer learning platform. The regional commissions also, including, let me talk especially about our region, ESCAP, and we really appreciate for its role, not because Executive Secretary, but yeah, yes, a crucial role in assisting member state in implementations outcomes of the FFD4. This commission provides tailored policy advice, technical assistance, and capacity building programs to address region-specific challenges in mobilizing resources, enhancing domestic revenue, and achieving sustainable development goals. The regional commissions are key operational actors in the post-FFD4 landscape. They bridge global financing commitments with the national implementation, building capacity, and shaping policy also. Their engagement ensuring that FFD4 outcomes become tangible, regionally relevant with the nationally executor. The regional commissions are critical enablers in translating the outcomes of the FFD4 into practical country-driven implementation by aligning the global ambitions with the local action. This is why I say that the following up of the outcomes of this conference is very critical. We do not want that the Compromiso de Sevilla to become just another document as the previous. We want it to lead the real changes, especially is how international system supports developing countries to access to the finance they need. And this is where the regional commissions can play the vital role. From our perspective, there are a few areas I would like to highlight where the regional engagement can truly make a difference. First, on debt and fiscal base, second, domestic resources mobilization, and this is the financial flow. It's included. Yeah. And then on private sector engagement on the finance. Four, we strongly support using the regional platforms for peer learning and South-South cooperation. For Iraq, this space essential exchange experiences with the countries facing a similar structural challenges, whether the fiscal reform, climate finance, or digital transformation. This platform also helps ensure that no one is reinventing the wheels and that the solutions are being tailored to regional context. We encourage the regional commissions to focus on the demand-driven technical assistance. That means support that is informed by the priorities national government, not externally imposed conditions alignment with the national development strategy should be the starting point, after. I would like also to say when always that even through the negotiations, when we started at the beginning of this year, and we met several times with the profiles about our ambitions when we started, because we engaged during the negotiations, we said and confirmed we don't accept less than our ambitions in the Addis Ababa election. But we know that with the current circumstances, so the key issues for all the developing countries, we know that there is a huge gap between the commitments which are adopted and even non-committed. But what we look at to implement, this is the huge gaps between the commitments or obligations and the implementation. So we're looking at that according to the all UN institutions and even with the partners, especially with the developing country, how can to bridge the gaps between not the developed and developing country, between the commitments and implementation. So in conclusion, let me underline the regional commissions are well placed to serve as a strategic partner in advancing the outcomes of FFD4. Their ability to connect the global frameworks with the regional realities and national priorities is critical. As we move forward, we must ensure that the follow-up efforts are inclusive, continually and focused to tangible results that respond to the needs of developing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shubham. Last but not least, we have a representative from Africa, Ms. Prudence Oman, Permanent Secretary for Planning and Administration, Ministry of Finance and National Planning, Zambia.
Thank you so much. I'd like to first and foremost begin by thanking the regional commissions for convening this very important meeting. And I'll just write on the protocols that have already been established. First and foremost, we want to indicate as the African region that we are very happy that the regional commissions are actually taking a proactive approach by already beginning to position yourselves to undertake the work of the UN and the expectation of member states towards the implementation of the Seville commitment. We want to indicate that this proactive approach that has been taken by the regional commissions is what is desired for players in the implementation of the Seville document, as it will accelerate the implementation and also keep the momentum going. We want to commend you also for the contribution that you made towards the discourse during the preparation of the outcome document, by the convening the various constituencies in your region on the expectations from the FFD4 outcome document. We recognize also the ECA that undertook at least 2 important meetings for FFD4 specifically in our African region. And this helped to galvanize really the desires and expectations from the African continent. As Zambia, our role as co-facilitator was made easier as we worked together with our colleagues from Norway, Mexico, and Nepal. We really valued the support that was provided by the various commissions that provided input into the work that we did, your analytical work and presentations. Particularly as Africa, we received presentations from ECA, who engaged the African group and various negotiators from the Global South to provide valuable inputs that made it possible for us to effectively ensure that these expectations were included in the commitment document that we have today. The policy brief that has been prepared by the regional commissions, together with its recommendations, are very commendable because these are a detailed analytical work with numbers and many statistics, which also outline the various challenges that needed to be outlined in the various chapters of the outcome document. And this detail really provided stronger commitment as well as substance that the Seville document has right now. We want to also indicate that the outcome document outlines the need for reform. It talks about the fact that we are living in an area of reform, especially that we are facing a lot of changes and dynamics in our global system. So reform is needed at all levels. And the report really attempted to indicate the reforms that are required at country level and at international institutional level. And many of the reforms that are called for by the regional bodies actually were also included and are outlined in the Seville commitment document. And we agree with the recommendation of the regional commissions to play a key role in the follow-up action beyond convening regional forums. The regional forums themselves can be strengthened by contributing to the FFD4 follow-up. Some of the specific points on the role of regional commissions that we agree with the recommendation and know that the regional forums are quite important, an important discourse that should be maintained. For instance, we see that the regional commissions should help countries, member states, to mainstream the Seville commitment in their national and regional implementation processes over their timeframes that are already existing or those that are coming up with new development plans. We also want to urge the regional commissions to build on the existing processes for planning, budgeting, and financial programming, so as not to create reporting burdens. We want the regional commissions to actually assist member states in popularization of the mapping out of key commitments that need to be implemented at the regional level with timelines and key responsibilities outlined. From the African continent, I want to point out that we face certain challenges that are outlined in the Seville document that need implementation and follow-up. One of them being overstatement of risk, which is hindering the flow of investments to the continent. We also want support in making the cost of, in bringing down the cost of capital, which is currently high, making it difficult for private investment to thrive. We also recognize the low domestic resource base and therefore need support in terms of ensuring the enhancement of domestic resource mobilization. We are faced with low representation at global institutions. So we want leverage in terms of the discourse to be continued with regard to engagement of international finance institutions for fair representation of the African continent. We are also actually facing a debt burden where we are paying high interest rates, holding out our fiscal space for other very priority programs and development programs such as enhancing health, education, social protection, and improving access to water and sanitation for our citizens. We also face a disproportionate burden of climate change impacts, which are threatening economic, threatening our economies and livelihoods at household level. We are also faced with illicit financial flows. So we realize that with these challenges that are contributing to slow growth in our economies, high level of unemployment, and high levels of poverty, the regional commissions can actually help our countries to better implement the commitments of the Seville programs by providing technical capacity, in development of integrated national planning frameworks that were alluded to in the outcome document that can offer quick action to commence and finalize, as the case may be, for some of these countries, the implementation of the key commitments in the Seville document as outlined earlier, so that we address the key challenges that our countries are facing. We're also looking to the regional commissions to help with peer-to-peer learning in the implementation and monitoring the commitments towards the Seville document. We are aware that the regional commissions are at various levels of engagement with the member countries. We already heard that there are regional commissions which have developed data optimization AI tools, which can be cross-referenced across other regions, such as our region, for us to be able to effectively manage the debt and be able to engage our creditors more effectively. We also heard earlier that there are some regional commissions that have helped their member states to enhance collaboration with regards to debt management. We feel that the regional commissions can harness this already existing framework to cross-apply it across other regions in order to actualize the borrower's plan that has already been established and learn good lessons from there, which can help kickstart the severe commitment to have a borrower's club that can enhance or improve the voice of the borrowers. We are also aware that some regions have developed planning and budgeting and financial management tools, which can be also adopted in other regions by member states through this cross-learning in order for us to have effective integrated planning frameworks that take into account the commitments in the Sevilla document. We are also calling upon the regional commissions to help kickstart the process of mapping policies and reforms that member states can undertake in order to enhance or unlock domestic and international financing to support transformation, especially for least developed countries. We're also looking at ways in which the regional commissions can actively engage in the discussion around reforming the global financial architecture so that we begin the process of ensuring that reforms take place and the other commitments that have been made in the Sevilla document can be actualized. Africa being faced with the disproportionate impact of climate risks, we are also looking for support towards enhancing our engagement.
So we have 4 minutes left. Conclude in 30 seconds. We can have some time for observation and questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So we just actually want to conclude with the fact that we appreciate the analytical work that has been done, and we look forward to collaborating with our regional commissions for us to implement and monitor actions in the Sevilla document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, my apologies for interrupting, but we just wanted to make sure. So you can actually share your written statements. We have a web-page event for this event. We'll post all these statements officially for later on for them to. Thank you so much. Okay, so this brings to the end. We have about 5 minutes. Are there any observations, feedback, suggestions, ideas that regional commissions can take forward from, let's call it today's day zero? And my colleague there. Yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for the excellent comments. Really appreciate them. So I'm actually in one of the regional economic commissions in Europe, and I'm not going to repeat what Tatiana said. The most important aspects in our region are domestic resource mobilization and aligning private flows. I've been a central banker. I've worked in a finance ministry. I led the UN Research Institute on social policy for 9 years, and it leads me to conclude, I think, that we are still not doing enough to connect the macro to the micro, and particularly the distributional impacts of fiscal policy, macro policy, even the debt dynamics to the social consequences of macro policy. And so I think that when we, as the RECs, think about how we structure our regional forum, we have a commitment each year to review SDG 17. We also need to connect it to distributional issues in each sector, but also to different characteristics and other dynamics going on in our region, population, particularly in our region, demographic change, aging, the provision of social protection, the provision of care frameworks, and a population that is depreciating. So I think that's how we as RECs need to think about it a bit more. Of course, in ESCAP, we have a strong social policy division, not so much in EC, but I think we need to bolster that so that we can do a better job connecting the macro to micro.
Thank you very much, Paul. Quite well taken. So one of the things we do intend to do in the post-Sevilla, in ESCAP at least, is to try and have an internal task team across divisions, maybe including local divisions. Trade division, for instance, statistics is there, but we're going to bring them on board on this process. They're there, but we're going to make it much more formal. The point very well taken, actually. Any other observations, any other ideas, any suggestions before we close? We have 1 minute to go.
Thank you. I'm the Minister of Planning and Economic Development for Sierra Leone. And I really appreciate this session because most of the sessions I've attended, I've had official invitations of being part of the panel, but I chose to be here because I thought that it was really essential. And I have got a lot of knowledge, and I'm pleased to note that all of the speeches are going to be posted because I've been scribbling, but I haven't been able to get anything down, and I even asked the director ECA for his own comments. So there will be direct feedback from Sierra Leone. And we did ask a question earlier to the Executive Secretary ECA, and this is just a thought that probably, or we wanted to know, and maybe you can answer now. He gave me a response, but whether or not you'll be working with the sub-regional bodies as well, like ECOWAS, because Sierra Leone has just assumed the chairmanship of the heads of states of authority of ECOWAS. So we'll be pushing some of these issues. I know there are some weaknesses within these institutions, but I just want to know how you will work with some of these institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Singh, for joining, actually, especially at this event. Really honored. I'm glad. I cannot speak for other sub-regions, other regions, but for ESCAP, we have our sub-regional offices in 5 different parts of Asia, and they work directly with sub-regional organizations such as ASEAN, SAARC, PIFS, Pacific Island Forum Secretariat. So one of the things we're picking up from what Paul said, it's organizing within regional commissions, how they're going to take it forward, making it multidisciplinary, and then reaching out of the institutions in the sub-region and other organizations who are working. So ASEAN, for instance, is an example. We're very actively working, and now we're going to take the Sevilla commitments and work with us. I'm assuming very similar structures are there in Africa, and they need to be strengthened. Regional commissions will work closely on that. That's from the Asia Pacific perspective. I don't know if anybody wants to pitch in from other sub-regions, other regions. Pretty similar.
Yeah, in Latin America.
Okay, I don't think the same in the Africa sub-region, but maybe you can share good practices.
There will be engagements, there will be engagement at the sub-regional level, because they will be brought to the fore. Also, so they will not be missed, but there will be engagements.
Yeah.
Any final word from the panelists here, speakers here? You want to leave us with a thought, or you already? Okay, I think we are right on time, 12 o'clock. Once again, thank you very much on behalf of all my colleagues, especially Paul is here. I know Michael Kunz was joining from ACE. Thanks Noel from ACLAC, Susanna and Vimal from ECA, and Naranjan from ESCAP. Thank you very much for working together. Thank you very much for all the speakers and representatives of the governments for sharing your views as well and your asks from our information and support. And thank you everyone for joining today.